I've got a 13-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and I've been telling them, like, get out. If you want to be successful in business, get out, sell. Like, literally yesterday, I was in the car with my son. I'm like, hey, I want to add you. I'm going to start adding you to some sales calls, and you can just say, hey, I work with Trevor Short. Here's what we do, and make him start really getting uncomfortable. Putting him in those uncomfortable situations. You have to learn to make the uncomfortable situation comfortable, right?
Welcome to the Takeover with Tim and Cindy, where we show you how to dominate every area of life and business. Let's get winning. Welcome back to the Takeover, where we show you how to dominate every area of life and business. I'm super honored to have Trevor Short on this show, a professional tennis player, serial entrepreneur. I know you launched Inspiring Dream this year, and you've done so much. I think one thing that really sticks out to me, because you and I met on Necker Island, where you actually put on the Necker Cup event, which is super cool. But I think that one thing that stuck out to me is, as we started to get to know you more, is Cindy and I started to know you more, is seeing your posts. I see you're a really, really big family man. When you met Cindy and I, you were just so genuine to us, and everybody I saw you interact with, you were just such a genuine person. And and I know you're friends with all kinds of millionaires, billionaires, entertainers. And so that's why I was really excited to have you on the show, is because not just because you're really good at winning in a lot of areas of business, but in life. And I think there's just a lot that I want to unpack in today's show. So, welcome to the show, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. I'm really excited.
Well, I mean, hey, maybe we could just start off. Tell me your story. Like, how did you get started? And I'll give some context. This show is all about winning. And so when I see the strings of wins you've had in your life, it seems like I'm assuming that you're a fairly competitive person. So I'd kind of be
Yeah,
interested to hear your journey and what got you to where you're at right now.
definitely. I'm extremely competitive in, I think, everything that I do. So my background originally started in tennis. I come from a huge background of tennis players, all the way from my grandmother was top 5 in the world and the semifinalist at Wimbledon many years ago. And then I grew up played college tennis, played a couple of years after college tennis. And I think that's what really gave me and gives me the competitive drive that I have is, I like to compete in everything. And I've carried that over to the businesses that I've created over the years. So yeah, I mean, I after college, I played college tennis at Middle Tennessee State Universities. After that, as I mentioned, I played for a couple of years. I knew I wasn't going to be the next Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal, so I decided I didn't want to teach tennis per se the rest of my life. So
Hmm.
to be honest with you, I really went out on a limb. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I went out when I was 25 years old. I rented the largest arena in the state of Georgia at the time, about 13,000 seats. Went in really with no real experience, and I went in and rented this arena. Got the world number one, Andy
Wow.
Roddick, at the time,
That's
and
bold. First of it.
yeah, my I just recently gotten married. My wife was like, "All right, so we're taking everything we have, our savings, and we're going to put this event on." And I did,
Wow.
and I brought the number one tennis player in the world that year, Andy Roddick. We sold it out. It was a huge success, and yeah, and then I
Wow.
did that for about 3 or 4 years. Just doing these big arena events where I would go around to Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, all around the Southeast, and do these huge one night events, and that's what really got me started in the event space.
Well, man, I think what's incredible there is that your first event, you rinse it out, you go on faith, but I
Mhm.
mean, I feel like there was a little bit of trusting yourself that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then you actually sell it out and you do it for your 4 years in a row. What do you think was the confidence that you had? Like, where did you get that confidence to go from never doing business, being an athlete, to being able to do that? I mean, was your network? Did you start to understand how the industry worked? Was it just
Sure.
being crazy?
A little bit of a little, probably more crazy than anything else. But I mean, I had always enjoyed sales ever since I was a kid, right? If if you gave me the magazine competition at school, I was always a kid that would go out there and sell it,
Mm,
and win that competition. So I knew at the end of the day, it was in my hometown, and I knew if I hustled, and it would and for those of you those that don't know, Atlanta is the largest tennis market in the world. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of players. So I knew that if I went out there and really busted it from a grassroots marketing standpoint and went out and went to all the matches, went to all the tennis courts, went to
yeah.
all the tennis clubs, and I did that. And I really worked hard for about 6 months, literally handing out flyers. I remember going to women's matches when I was, on every Saturday and Sunday and telling people about it. And yeah, I was fortunate that it all worked out and it was a huge success.
I love that. I think what sticks out to me is I always talk about the philosophy of, if it's not the best written book that becomes a bestseller, it's the best sold book becomes a bestseller. And so that ability to sell, if I can have a company and I'm better at selling, not only can I get more customers, but then those more customers give me more feedback so I can make my product better. And so
Yep.
I think what do you see as, how important do you see as an entrepreneur the willingness to go out and just sell, knock on doors, what kind of whatever it takes? What's your philosophy behind sales, and why it's important in business?
Well, I mean, I think it's the most important thing. It's funny. I've got a 13-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and I've been telling them, like, "You get out. If you want to be successful in business, get out, sell." Like, literally yesterday, I was in the car with my son. I'm like, "Hey, I want to add you. I'm going to start adding you to some sales calls, and you can just say, hey, I work with Trevor Short. Here's what we do,' and make him start really getting uncomfortable, putting him in those uncomfortable situations. You have to learn to make the uncomfortable situation comfortable, right?
Mm,
One of my favorite things that I ever did was I remember going to New York City. This was about 6, 7 years ago with some of the kids from Inspiring Children. And I said to them, I said, listen, I'll give whoever, there was about 20 kids. I said, I'll give any of you that I found a pair of Oakleys on the street
mm.
in Chinatown, and I said, guys, they want $40 for this fake pair of Oakleys. Whoever can come back and get me the cheapest price, I'll give them $100 bill. And these are all the kids, right? And they all go out and they all hustle. And one kid came back and got a 40 pair all the way down to $3. And all he did, he was really good at
Wow.
communication. He was good at building relationships, and he went out and he did it. But I think sales is, in my opinion, the number one key when it comes to most entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And it's the getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, because when you step into that, I was a very, very shy kid, but I hated it. And so I
Yeah,
always threw myself into really awkward situations, and I found pretty quickly that it sales really comes down to, there's pretty simple processes. Like, no one's born a doctor, no one's born a dentist, no one's born a lawyer. And some people are born with an inclination towards sales, but it really is, even see it, somebody that's maybe more inclined towards it still has to get uncomfortable. So I'd love to hear that from you, from somebody who's always been good at sales. What is that? Is it still uncomfortable? Do you still find yourself pushing yourself in uncomfortable situations? And if so, what does that look like?
absolutely. I mean, I think I've always enjoyed sales. I've been good at sales, but I definitely find myself sometimes still in comfortable situations. Right, as you mentioned, I mean, I've been very fortunate to build some relationships with um, a lot of extremely high net worth individuals, billionaires, celebrities, whatever. And occasionally, right, I'll come across some that I've always learned that we all put our pants on the same way, right? But
Yeah.
occasionally, I will come across some that that I have really great respect for, and
Mm,
I've still got to sell them on something. And that has been uncomfortable at times. Now, what I found that really helps me is I'm very fortunate that I have tennis as a background, and I could play at a high level. And a lot of these, ultra high net worth millionaires, billionaires, the ones that I deal with, if I'm uncomfortable maybe selling them on something, I'll say, "Hey, let's go play tennis." Right?
mm,
Because they respect
yeah.
me in tennis. I respect them obviously a lot with what they've done with business, but that breaks the ice a little bit. and it
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier, to do something where they admire you.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say that because there's if you look at a social dynamic, there's always status, and whether it's good or bad, everybody has a perceived status. Everybody looks at somebody else with a certain status. You go into a room where there's a billionaire entrepreneur, that person has the status in that room. But now you get on the tennis court and Trevor has the
Yeah,
status because you're the expert in that field. So I love the situational status, and it's something that I talk about. But I love that you use that it's like you're getting them into your realm of expertise where it's maybe a hobby for them, but it's your
yeah.
something you're a professional at. And so that's interesting. What would you say for somebody, how somebody else could do that for when they're in talking to somebody with a high level of situational status, maybe an entrepreneur, or somebody they're trying to get a network with or become a client? How would you say to create, I mean, maybe that it's just tennis for you, but do you have any other
Sure.
ideas of how to create situational kind of
Well,
status?
I think it's important if you can, going into that meeting, to know what is that person, what do they like? Maybe it's family, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's religion, maybe it's sports, maybe it's whatever it might be. They probably have a hobby, right?
Yeah.
Of something that is outside of business. Find out what that is and find how to relate with them with that, because that breaks the ice, right?
Yeah.
That makes it so much easier to have that conversation if they've got a son that plays baseball and you've got a son that plays baseball like I do, right? Well, have that conversation first. Don't just dive right into the business side. Have a personal conversation, and then that really breaks the ice a little bit.
Hmm. I like that. And I'm kind of want to shift gears here a little bit. Because if I want to make sure that, from the outside, it seems like life has been pretty frictionless for, when you look at anybody that's created some kind of level of success and is good at it, they make it look easy on the outside because they put on in the work, right? The easier it looks, the more work's been put in. So I'd be super interested to know, like, what would you say has been one of the most difficult challenges you faced as an entrepreneur? Maybe one of the biggest obstacles, and what is kind of the biggest lesson you learned from that?
Man, I've learned a lot, and definitely there's been obstacles. I would say for me, about during COVID, I mean, my background has always been in events and relationships and experiences. That's been
Mm,
my core business, right? And then in 2020, when COVID hit, that was a tough hit on the industry. And
yeah,
I had this idea. I may have not even, you may not be aware of it or you've even heard of it, but I had this idea to create a Cameo like app. I don't know if you've heard of Cameo, but it's an app where you can communicate with your favorite celebrities, have them send videos. And I was fortunate because I had built relationships with hundreds of celebrities and professional athletes and entrepreneurs, business leaders, whatever it may be. And I was also fortunate because I had built relationships with a lot of high net worth individuals that had built trust in me. Right. So I
yeah,
went out and I raised quite a bit of capital and built an app called FanJolt. And it was awesome. We brought on some huge names. I immediately brought on Patrick Mahomes, brought on Aaron Judge in baseball. We had Rafael Nadal in tennis. We had Kevin O'Leary and Damon John from Shark Tank, to some incredible some singers like Nelly and Ashanti. Remember them back in the day? Like we had over 200 celebrities that were on this
wow,
app. And it was great. We raised a lot of money, but unfortunately, just about a year and a half or so ago, I had to shut it down. And I think what I learned, I mean, there was a lot of pitfalls along the way, and there was a lot of positive moments along the way. But I think the biggest lesson I learned there was I'd never developed an app, and working with developers along the way was very challenging. Finding the right set of developers, you can
yeah,
really burn through a lot of money with the
yes.
wrong developers.
And
And we had
especially
to
if you're not a developer and you don't actually know all the details about what's happening.
Absolutely. So we
Yeah.
went through a lot. We went through 3 sets of different developers, and it
Oh
was a
man.
great idea and one that I was thrilled about. We brought on some incredible people, and that was a painful time in my
Yeah.
entrepreneur journey, to see that have to eventually close down. I'm proud of a lot of what we created, but it was tough to see it close.
I mean, and you had the network, you had the connections, because I saw that. I mean, what do you think is your biggest lesson learned from that experience?
Um, you know, well, one, I would say if you're doing something in that space, probably go out and raise about 10 times more than you really think you'll need.
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
one to typically do that. Like, I want to do things a little bit more on the cheap and try to build it organically,
Yeah.
and see it grow. But I think the tech space in general is a very, very competitive space, and some of the competitors that we had were raising hundreds of millions of dollars right out of the gate,
Mm,
and we were raising millions, but we weren't raising hundreds of millions. And I think to be unfortunately, like, I think if looking back, I probably at the beginning could have been willing to give up more equity and been and raise a lot more capital.
yeah.
But I didn't want to do that out of the gate. And looking back, I wish and probably should have done that.
Yeah. I think it's a good lesson too, not just equity, but I think so many people they're scared to give too much of the pie away.
Yeah.
When, if you're able to just say, hey, what is the ultimate outcome and goal of this? And
Yeah.
will the pie that's left over for me, be greater than if I hold on to too much? Yeah. That's, man. And
Yeah.
that, hearing that, it's like, I'm sure there was a lot of sleepless nights and eyes
Yeah.
staring at the ceiling like, what have I got myself into? What are we doing next? How do you know when to persevere as entrepreneurs? It's, don't give up, grit your teeth, work hard. How do
Sure.
you know when to keep pushing and when to say, hey, you know what? I got to move on to the next thing.
I mean, for me, I think I lost after 3.5 years of doing that, and I still had my other events and experiential business still going, and we were doing events and things. But um, I think I lost a little bit of passion for it.
Mm,
It was something where, I mean, I gave my heart and soul to it for over 3 years and grinded
Jeez.
18-hour days to make it happen. But after a few years, I just wasn't getting the traction we wanted. And then I honestly, when I wake up in the morning, I'm so excited to do what I do. I love what I do.
Mm,
And when I got to a point when I was waking up and I was sort of like, oh man, what a grind. Like, I got to do this. Like, I started realizing, like, okay, this is probably not going to make it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, do you feel like it's always for you I mean, how much do you feel like there is the things that you just do that you have to do, but it's not enjoyable versus I love doing this and there's passion? Because as entrepreneurs, you have to have that overall passion, but there's going to be things that like this thing sucks, but it's necessary to pull this up. How much of that, I don't know, I hate using the word balance, but how much of that ratio, I know there's
Yeah.
not science, how much of that ratio do you kind of see in your life?
Well, I would say now that I'm back to just really focused on my experiential and events business, it's definitely more so I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
mean, I because when I got into the space that I'm in, it was originally more of a lifestyle play. Like, I wanted to do something around tennis and golf and music and things that I really enjoy. And I've been able to build a business around those things that I enjoy. So I think most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, um, I enjoy it. Now, what I'm not good at, my team would say, is I'm good at more big picture. I'm good at sales.
Yeah.
I hate sort of just the getting dirty into the operations. So we have these operational calls like every day for events that we're doing. I'm just like, you guys please
Yeah.
take it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, I mean, I'm curious I mean, we know that the marketing and sales is life, the blood of the business. I mean, you've said how important it is to get good and get comfortable at sales. How important is it to be able to build a pipeline, like to be able to actually get contacts with people, to be able to get the meetings, and maybe what are some of the ways that you've done that for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it's not easy, right? It takes time. I know early on, like for example, when we were building the Necker Cup with Richard Branson, I mean, when we started that, I was fortunate that we had like from my previous events, obviously doing events and things, we had some relationships, but in order for that event to be successful, we had to have a lot of ultra high net worth relationships. And one of the things that I did was and it was a grind for the first 5, 6 years, especially. I mean,
Mm,
I was on the road all the time, going to events, whether it was like a country club member guest or a country club's pro-am or some celebrities, gala or auction that they put on. I went out to a lot of those things, and we spent money for me to go to some of these things on the hope that I could use my sales skills and relationship skills on building relationships, and it paid off. Right? I mean, I went to a lot of networking type events and put the time in to meet people and build relationships.
yeah.
And then once they saw what we did, it really grew.
Well, and I love that. And what I'm curious about too is, I mean, I don't want to like steal all your secret sauce, but what is when you think of sales and building relationships? Because one thing that really stuck out to me is just every time send me a text, shoot me a message, whatever. It always felt like it was just so genuine, and so maybe kind of walk through like just maybe your philosophy on sales and what that looks like to go from building a friendship, a connection to turning that into a customer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you just nailed it in the sense that first you have to build a friendship. You have to build a relationship. I think too often people, just want to be quick. They want to get the sell, they want to get the money, right? So they go in immediately making that ask. And maybe there are moments sometimes where you have to do that. But
Yeah.
for me, my approach has been, hey, don't be rushed to go in and ask for the money. Like you have to be patient, you have to build that relationship. Otherwise, everyone looks at you transactionally, and like, okay, the only reason he's reaching out to me is because he wants money, right?
Yeah.
And not every single time that you reached out to someone should be for sales, right? I mean, like I probably have 100 or so of my top clients, and I would say 90% of the time when I reach out to them right now, I'm not reaching out to them asking for money. I'm reaching out to them because they have become my friends, and I'm just, finding out how is their life going, how are their kids doing, And I think if you
Mm.
don't do that, and every single time you reach out to them, it's because you want to sell something. And I've had that, yeah, I've had that a few times in the past, right? Where someone's like, "Listen, the only reason you're calling me is because you want something," right? And I've learned over the years, like
Yeah.
it can't always be that way.
Yeah, I think especially with the type of clients you have and I mean, there's one thing where you're maybe selling like, a small product, and
Sure.
that's much more knock on the door, get the
Yeah.
sell, move to the next thing. But your style, what you're building is something that's very long term. It's these relationships that are valuable. And what I think I've really stuck out to me is so that they actually become your friends. So you're not just hunting and killing,
Yeah.
you're actually like nurturing and getting to know people and building friendships. Yeah.
I mean, I have people still today that haven't done anything with us in years, but I mean, we still talk. I mean, they become friends, right? And if nothing ever comes out of that, moving forward again, I'm okay with that because they're great people and they've become my friends.
I love that, man. I keep saying I love that because I actually do. I love a lot of your philosophies, the way you look at things, and it's pretty unique and rare to see somebody that kind of thinks on the level that you do. I mean, kind of want to switch a little bit and move into, and this is, if imagine, Trevor, if you were to lose all your business, all your money, all your connections, and you had to start from ground zero, no connections, no money, no business, what would you do? Because we know from, billionaires, successful people, they can lose it all and then a few years later be back to where they were and sometimes bigger. What would you, if you went to zero on all that, what would you do to get back to where you're at?
Well, it's funny. One thing that I'll do probably once a month or so, I get crazy ideas of like new businesses I want to start, new ideas that I want to do, and I always make a point just to write them down. And I have actually a
Mm,
folder on my computer that just says ideas. So I probably have like 50 or more over the years that I think would be successful. Now, they're all for the most part in some way related to sales. Yeah, they
yeah,
come back to things what I feel like I'm good at is selling and around, building relationships. So I mean, I don't know if I could tell you specifically one, I'm not,
sure.
I don't,
You don't have to say the idea. Give me like an idea of what are maybe some action steps you would take to implement one of those ideas to get it going.
man, well, I'm trying to think of which of the ideas would I go after. Well, first of all, I would probably do something again that I would want to do around something I enjoy. I really don't want to go after just the money. I want to do something that I really honestly
Mm,
enjoy. So I would the first thing I would do is probably find a few guys like I currently have that because you're only as good as your team, right? And I would
yes,
find guys that I want to work with, people on my team that I really trust,
yes,
and I know I can scale something with. So that would be my first thing is finding a group of a few people to help me implement the idea, um, and people I want to spend my everyday life with.
yeah. No, 100% team. A lot more questions, but what are reflected on your experience? Like, what are just maybe a few extra key lessons that you would share with those striving for success?
Well, I think we touched on some, right? I mean, obviously, from the team, from a sales perspective, I think, I mean, it's probably seems a little cliche and people say it, but it's like be yourself, right?
Mm,
I mean, I've learned that I grew up on a farm. You can see like my farm behind me, my farm sign. I grew up like very nothing special, and but I'm like going on mega yachts at Monte Carlo for F1 race. But I try to continue to always be humble and remember where
mm.
I came from and know that that's who I am. I remember Damon John one time sent me something and it said, "Hey, remember your why," right? And that's my family. That's what I fall back on. But it's always be yourself. I would say is
I
for
saw
me.
that post on your social. He sent it with the handwritten letter, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
I love man. So takeover is all about winning in all areas of life and business. What what does winning mean to you, Trevor?
I mean, winning to me is, of course, we all want to be financially successful, but that's definitely not number one for me. Winning to me is being having inner happiness, and inner happiness is my relationship with God, my relationship with my family, and the closest people around me. So as long as I'm happy in those three areas, and they're happy with me, then I'd say that's winning in my book.
Trevor, so what are some ways that people can get connected with you, and what are some of the projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my company is called inspiringdreams.com. So you can go check out that and you can see we do everything from event consulting to luxury travel. We actually, a big project we're working on now, which I'm really excited about, is called the Foundation Reserve. You can go check that out. The Foundation Reserve is a super luxury social club that's focused on raising money for Inspiring Children, which is a children's and mental health foundation based out of Las Vegas. But last year, I connected with a gentleman named Dr. George Rapier. He built a company called WellMed that has been that is incredibly successful, worth billions of dollars. And he came to me and he said, "Trevor, I want to create a social club that number one is focused on giving back. Number
Mm,
two, I love travel. I love meeting new people, and I love wines." He has some incredible vineyards all around the world. And he said, "Listen, I have 6 incredible estates all around the world that when we create this social club, the members of this club, number one, will get to go to all the events that we do, this amazing community of people that we're building. Number two, they can go to any of my properties around the world. So he has
Mm.
homes in Cannes, in Tuscany, in St. Thomas, in Florence, all around the world. Like his home in Florence is a 1,000 acre
Wow.
property vineyard with a 1,700-year-old villa on the property. And he's allowing all the members of the Foundation Reserve to go enjoy all these properties. And then we're running 6 events. So the event that you're coming to next Thursday night, we have Grammy award-winning artist Luis Fonsi, who's performing. We have Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, who's coming. Damon John from Shark Tank's coming. So we're bringing all these amazing people together. In Italy this year, we have Sting performing on July 1st, just for about 75 people, the members of
Yeah.
the Foundation Reserve. So I'm really excited, and it's raising millions of dollars for our foundation, inspiring children. So that's the project I'm more focused on and more excited about than anything we're doing. Of course, we have our partnership with Richard Branson and the Necker Cup, and then I have an incredible partnership with MGM in Las Vegas, where we run their tennis events and racket sports events. So we have a
Wow.
lot going on, but more than anything, I like the projects that are really focused on giving back to the foundation.
Do you sleep, or you just like, are you like a Tesla? You just plug into the wall when you need a little extra energy.
Um, I don't sleep as much as I should, that's for sure. But I try to always find balance and find time for the family and find time for all the projects we're involved with.
Well, Trevor, where's a couple of places people can connect with you?
Yeah. Well, one, you can go to inspiringdreams.com, and you can reach out to us on there. Also, foundationreserve.com. You can find contact information for our team on there. Um, neckercup.com. That's a site for our Necker Cup with Richard Branson. Contact information on there. So yeah, there's multiple ways, but those are 3 different sites they can check out.
All right. Well, Trevor, it's been awesome to have you on this show. As everybody listening, thanks for listening in. And again, this is the Takeover, where we show you how to dominate in every area of life and business. And just remember, domination is not a destination, it is a way of life.